You know, one of the things that has really annoyed me about this whole refugee crisis in the West is the fact that many of the refugees who have come to the West as so-called refugees aren't really refugees. What do I mean by that? When you're a refugee from a country going to another country, it's because you belong to a certain group, whether it's a gender or a religion or some kind of group that's being persecuted. And the thing that's happening with this current refugee crisis is most of the people who are coming in as refugees are young, fighting age, healthy men. And I'm saying to myself, well, in the Middle East right now, with all the problems that's happening, young, healthy, middle-aged, fighting age men are the people who are least likely to be persecuted in the Middle East. The people who are being persecuted in the Middle East, and what's worse is that the people who are persecuted in the Middle East, you hardly see any of them come to the West as refugees. I mean, Christians, Jews, those groups of people are really persecuted in the Middle East. You hardly see them. You see women for the most part, and they're also persecuted by the events that are happening in the Middle East. But most of the time you see men, and not only men, but men without families. They come without their families. Whether they have families or not, that would almost be like in World War II, the people you send in from Germany as refugees are Aryans, but you hardly see any Jews. Now, how does that make any sense? But there's one instance now that I'm talking about where one person who I can actually say is truly a refugee has made her way to Canada, and her name is Rahaf Mohammed al-Qunun. And I warmly welcome Miss al-Qunun, or I don't know, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sorry if I'm not, but I warmly welcome her to Canada. And not only that, I'll tell you this, she is one of the greatest freedom fighters that have belonged to the Muslim race since Malcolm X. I'll get to that later. But let me give you the story on Rahaf Mohammed al-Qunun. This is a young lady who comes from Saudi Arabia, and her family is very, very strict when it comes to Islam. They're very, very they believe it hardcore, and they expect their children to believe it too. Now, Rahaf, being of a younger generation, and I've always said the younger generations are actually the smartest ones, she doesn't fall into her parents' and her elders' extremist ideology. She wants to live free. She wants to live her life, but her family can't handle that. And somewhere down the line, she has come to the decision that her life is in danger. Her freedoms are in peril. She wants to be free. So she has taken the opportunity to leave Saudi Arabia and come to Canada. And what happened is that she and her family were on vacation in Kuwait. And she used that as the opportunity to flee from her family, to flee from her siblings, her mother and father, her friends back home, everything she ever knew. She has used that opportunity to just chuck it and run. And no little girl would ever do something like that if there was not something serious happening beneath the surface. So I believe this woman when I say she's been persecuted by her parents' fanatical religious beliefs. So she made her way to Thailand, but what happened in Thailand is that the Thai officials were threatening to send her back to Saudi Arabia. And knowing what she knows about Saudi culture, their belief in the Sharia law and women being second-class citizens, she was afraid that her life was going to be in danger if she was sent back. She could have been beaten or worse if she sent back. So what she did was she barricaded herself in her room that she was staying in Thailand. I don't know if she went on a hunger strike in that room, but she had said that she was not coming out of this room, and no one is entering this room until somebody grants her refugee status in their country. And Canada came to the rescue and did just that. But she was willing to die for her freedom. That is how serious and extreme the situation is. This young, brave young woman was willing to die, and she broadcast that throughout social media. She had her own social media site. She had her Twitter. She had everything. She was showing everybody the lengths that she was willing to go to get her freedom. And now she's in Canada. and I welcome her to Canada. I'll explain in a minute why I think that it was a mistake for her to come to Canada, though. But now she's getting death threats. And she's not getting death threats just from people outside of Canada. She's getting death threats from people within Canada. And I think most of the death threats she's getting are actually within Canada. And I also think most of them belong to the Islamic community. Because many people now feel that she's put shame on Islam, she's a traitor, she's this and that. You know, many people are now calling for some kind of a fatwa against her, threatening her life. I mean, now it's become so bad that she's had to suspend her Twitter account, and she's now having to live with 24/7 security within Canada. Which leads me to this. I don't think she should have come to Canada. I don't think I don't think she should have come. I think she should have gone to the United States, and I'll tell you why. Because Canada, just like in Europe, is dealing with this problem in an incredibly sloppy manner. First of all, just as I explained in the beginning of this video, most of the people they're bringing in are people who are least likely to be persecuted in the Middle East. Young, fighting age, healthy men. First of all, what's a man doing escaping his country anyway? I'll tell you this. If something were to happen in my country where many people would have to go as refugees, guess what? I wouldn't be going anywhere. I'd stay in this country and I'd fight whoever's trying to destroy my beautiful country. As a man, as a masculine man, that's what I would do. You think I'm going anywhere as no refugee? You must be out of your mind. I will tear up anybody who's trying to attack, who's trying to destroy my country. I'll tear you up. Whoop you up all day. I'll take my belt, whoop you with the hard end of the belt. I'll tear you up to defend my country as a man. But that's not what many of these people are doing. And then on top of that, they come to these countries and you hear reports about refugees in Germany, refugees in France, refugees even in Canada to a lesser extent, creating problems, sexual harassment, public disorder, all sorts of crazy things. I mean, look at Germany, crazy things happening in Germany. You won't hear about it in the media, but these nations aren't taking this seriously, and these nations are not taking seriously the threat of radical Islamic terrorism. Now, this video is not a hate thing on Muslims. I know many Muslims, many of them are friends of mine, but there is a problem with the religion of Islam. No other religion would behave the way the Islamic religion, the people, the vast majority of the Islamic religion are behaving when it comes to this woman. No other religion. I mean, there is something within that religion that causes its inhabitants to act crazy, to act to the point where a little girl who just wants her freedom needs 24-hour security. Something is wrong. I mean, look who we have as a leader. This long-haired piece of trash, piece of Canadian trash, Justin Trudeau, long-haired Matt Daddy, son of Satan, comes out of the pit of hell, makes his way to the throne of Canada, and look at the results. I mean, my advice to Rahaf Mohammed, al-Qunun, is your safety is not guaranteed in Canada. You should go to America. You should go to Donald Trump's country. I mean, Donald Trump certainly hasn't visited any radical Wahhabist mosques like the Mac Daddy did. Donald Trump isn't giving $10 million to a terrorist who killed 2 soldiers like Justin the Longer and Mac Daddy Trudeau did. Donald Trump is protecting his country, and he is taking seriously the problems of radical Islamic terrorism, not like Canada, unlike Canada. So I say her freedom would be more guaranteed in the United States. And by the way, I hear she's looking for 24/7 security, or she already has 24/7 security. Here's a proposition. I've just started working out again. Why not ask me to be your security man? Let me tell you something. You can shoot me, you can bomb me, you can stab me and take the pussy way to try and get to a defenseless girl who's trying to fight for her freedom. But I can promise you this. I am pretty certain that if you want to take the manly way and try to take me on in a fist fight on the street to try and kill an innocent woman, I am very, very, very confident that I can take your head and I can go bowling with it. I will roll you all over the place. Highly confident. Not the biggest guy in the world, but I am highly confident. And that confidence grows even higher when I get some of my buddies with me and we all team up and we all defend the freedom fighter, Rahaf Mohammed, al-Qunun. And I'll tell you this. Those of you who are saying that I am just being hateful of Muslims and all this stuff, let me tell you something. One of my greatest heroes, one of the people in history who I admire the most is a man by the name of Malcolm X, who was a Muslim. By the way, he was actually killed by his fellow Muslims because he wasn't extreme enough, but he was a Muslim, and I admire that man. That man was a freedom fighter. He fought for black people. He fought for poor people, and he didn't do it the way Martin Luther King did in a weakish type of way. I mean, this man actually put his life up. I mean, this man he fought for freedom, and he did it in a very politically incorrect way. I know a lot of white people aren't going to like me saying that, but I don't care what you think. Malcolm X was my hero, and I'll tell you this, Rahaf Mohammed al-Qunun, I think she's one of the greatest freedom fighters to come from the Islamic religion since Malcolm X. I put both of them in the same box. Malcolm X was threatened. His life was threatened by radical Muslims who wanted him to be even more radical and thought he was a traitor, and they wanted to shut him up, as is this young lady's life is as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone tried to kill her. But I put them both in the same box, and both of them are my heroes. I salute both of them, and to hell with anybody who thinks that I shouldn't be doing that. But I welcome you to Canada. I hope you remain safe. I think you made a bad decision in coming to Canada. I think maybe you should have gone to the United States. If they had allowed you in, maybe they wouldn't have. But, that's how it goes. But I just hope you remain safe. I can't promise that your safety will be guaranteed in this country because we've got a government and we've got people who are too politically correct to deal with the problem of radical Islamic terrorism. I wouldn't be surprised if white people, Christian or whatever, Christian white people, any type of white people are actually joining in the threatening of you because you are too harsh with Islam. You've made Islam look bad. You've made them look bad because they've been defending this whole thing. They've been saying that there's been no problem and you just stuck a hole in their argument. And I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't a few of them who are threatening you. But in any case, I salute you. I support you. And if anything does happen to you, you didn't die in vain. You died a martyr. This is the Arana Nation.